In the quiet village of Ajanleko, where the echoes of ancestral tradition still dictated the lives of its people, the Agbede family carried a burden passed down from generations. Their lineage was marked by sorrow, poverty, failure, and inexplicable tragedies. No matter how hard they worked, prosperity eluded them like a shadow fleeing the light. The men remained bound to the land, unable to escape the cycle of hardship, while the women, though beautiful and virtuous, were cursed with broken homes. If they married, misfortunes will follow soon after. Some would be widowed, and many left barren despite countless prayers and rituals. At the heart of this family's misery stood an ancient clay pot placed in the inner chamber of the ancestral shrine. The pot, dark with a faint ominous glow, was the source of the covenant forged generations ago. It was said that Baba Agbede, the family's forefather, had sought wealth and power from the gods and had been granted his desires at a price. The bloodline will forever be bound to the spirit within the pot. To keep the spirit appeased, sacrifices had to be made, and the family had to honor it with unwavering devotion. Those who dare question its power or abandon the worship will face dire consequences. Among the latest generations of the Agbede family was Akin, a young man with a restless spirit and a mind that often clashed with tradition. Unlike his older brothers, who accepted their fate, Akin refused to believe that his family was destined for eternal suffering. He had watched his sisters suffer. One was divorced 3 times. Another had lost 2 husbands mysteriously, and the youngest, Yewande, had been unable to conceive for years. His uncles, once ambitious men, had been reduced to shadows of themselves, riddled with sicknesses and failures. Akin's father, Pa Adewale, was a staunch believer in the ancestral ways. The pot is our protector, he would always say. It has been with us since our forefathers, and we must honor it. To Akin, these words sounded more like chains than wisdom. One fateful night, after yet another tragic event, a cousin losing his life in an unexplained accident, Akin made a decision. He would leave Ajanleko. He would not live under the curse of the pot any longer. Against his father's wishes, he packed his belongings and set off for Lagos, the city of dreams. His departure was seen as an act of rebellion, and whispers spread across the village that he would not last long before returning in disgrace. Lagos was a world unlike anything Akin had ever known. The air was thick with ambition, the streets alive with movement. Opportunities lay at every corner, but they did not come easy. Akin struggled at first, doing odd jobs just to survive. Yet, despite the Please subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell, like, and comment. Thank you. Hardships, he noticed something different. He was not plagued by the same misfortune as his family back at home. He did not fall mysteriously sick, nor did his efforts end in fruitless labor. One evening, while wandering through the bustling streets of Yaba, he heard a voice preaching from a small church. Intrigued, he stepped inside. The words of Pastor Emmanuel cut deep into his heart, speaking of liberation, of breaking chains unseen, of power beyond that of ancestors and spirits. Akin found himself returning to the church day after day, drawn by an unexplainable force. One night, as prayers filled the room, he fell into a deep trance. In his vision, he saw the pot in his village glowing with an airy red light, voices whispering in a tongue he did not understand. Then, suddenly, the pot cracked slightly, and a powerful wind blew through the vision, almost knocking him off his feet. He woke up sweating, his heart pounding. Pastor Emmanuel, seeing his distress, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have seen the root of your family's bondage," the pastor said. "You must return and break it." Akin hesitated. He had fled Ajanleko to escape that very fate. To return was to walk into the lion's den. Yet, deep within, he knew he could not abandon his family to the suffering he had escaped from. Months later, Akin stood at the entrance of his village. The air felt thick, heavier than he remembered. The people eyed him with curiosity, some with suspicion. His father barely acknowledged his presence. His mother wept but dared not go against her husband's authority. The shrine still stood untouched by time, the pot resting on its usual place, silent yet menacing. Determined, Akin sought to gather his siblings, his mother, and those in the village who had suffered under the weight of the ancestral curse. He spoke of what he had learned, of a power greater than the one they had served for generations. Some listened, intrigued. Others, including his father, scoffed at his defiance. The gods do not forget, Padewale warned. You are playing with fire, Akin. But Akin was resolute. The battle was only beginning. That night, strange occurrences began. Akin woke up to a deep, guttural voice whispering in the darkness. The air around him was heavy, and his body felt paralyzed. Shadows danced on the walls, shifting unnaturally. At the shrine, the pot trembled, emitting low humming sound. The priest of the village, Baba Ifagbamila, was already aware of Akin's return. He gathered the elders and warned him. This boy has brought ruin upon us, the priest declared. The spirit is angry. It will demand blood, oh. As the night deepened, the family compound was struck with terror. Padewale fell ill suddenly, sweating profusely. Yewande's house caught fire without explanation. Yet the flames burned only the walls, leaving the roof intact. The villagers, now fearful, turned against Akin. This is your doing, they accused him. You have brought the wrath of the gods upon us. But Akin did not waver. He called on those who believed in him, including his mother and a few younger villagers. Together, they prayed, and for the first time in decades, the spirit of the pot was challenged. But this was only the beginning. The true battle had yet to come. As the villagers gathered around the shrine, the tension was thick. Akin, now joined by a handful of believers, began to pray. The air grew heavy, and an unnatural wind howled through the village. Suddenly, the pot shook violently, and an airy voice echoed through the shrine. The spirit was resisting. The Babalawo, chanting incantations, tried to silence Akin's prayers, but the power of faith had been ignited. Akin's voice grew stronger, and as he called upon divine... Please subscribe to this channel, turn on your notification bell, like, and comment. Thank you. Intervention, a blinding light filled the room. With a final ear-piercing crack, the pot shattered into pieces, releasing a thick dark mist that screamed as it dissipated into the night. The curse was broken. The villagers watched in awe. For the first time in generations, the weight of misfortune lifted. The sick found relief, and those who had suffered years of oppression felt a newfound sense of hope. Padewale, now weak and humbled, fell to his knees before Akin. My son, I was blind, forgive me. Tears streamed down Akin's face as he embraced his father. The village rejoiced, singing songs of deliverance and celebrating their newfound freedom. With his mission complete, Akin remained in Ajanleko for a while, helping to rebuild the village and teaching the people the truth that had set them free. When he finally returned to Lagos, he carried with him not just victory, but a legacy of faith, courage, and redemption.